So, okay, we're going to pick up with the last three themes. The third one being human environment interaction. And this one may seem fairly intuitive. How do humans interact with their environment, and how does the environment fight back, so to speak, or react back? And generally, when people think of this theme, they think of the physical environment, which fits the theme very well. So they might think of natural disasters, for instance. If there's a hurricane, if there's a tornado, if there is a flood, how do humans respond to that natural hazard? And what caused that natural hazard? Was there any human environment interaction? You could also look at larger scale processes, anything that would fall under the category of environmental degradation would fit this category. So, things like global warming or climate change or soil erosion or deforestation or desertification or ocean dumping. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of things that may have varying levels of human interaction, and how does the environment respond back? Or it could be looking at the natural environment at just an individual level, looking at how we respond to just day-to-day weather. Do you respond any differently if it's 110 degrees and sunny versus if it's 52 degrees and raining? Of course you do. It will dictate your plans for the day in some cases, and may even affect your mood in some cases. And as a culture, we're becoming more and more interested in weather overall. If you watch the news, for instance, the weather used to, at one point in time, just be the last 5 minutes of a news broadcast. So if you wanted to see the weather, you turned on the news at 6:25 or 11:25, and you got the 5-day forecast. Now, when you watch the news, you get the sneak peek at the beginning. Then maybe a few minutes in, you might take a little look at Doppler, but they don't quite tell you the forecast. You still have to wait till later for that. Then there might be another sneak peek, storms approaching, stay tuned. And then it's, again, not until the end that you get the full forecast. And of course, now with the internet and smartphones and things like that, I mean, you can get any weather information just at the touch of a button. But we are very interested in that overall, particularly if there's anything outside the norm. I mean, if there's an area where it snows, usually first snowfall, it's top story. And people want to see it. People want to stay glued to the TV. People want to see the clips of the car sliding across the road on the ice and people falling on the sidewalk and things like that. Even in Fresno, in the wintertime, if there's a week of 100-degree temperatures, it's top story. And it's Fresno. I mean, we know this. Okay, we know it's going to hit 100 degrees at some point in the summertime. But still, it's the top story. They might even go so far as to bring in the expert, every year to tell you what you should do. Stay indoors, check on the elderly, give your pets water, that type of standard stuff that you think is common knowledge. But it's part of this fascination with the physical world and weather. So that's the obvious interaction. But it can also be the physical environment. It doesn't necessarily have to be the natural environment. It could be our built environment, our classrooms, our malls, our grocery stores. All of these things are built to evoke a certain response. If you go to a casino, for instance, how many of you have gone into a casino and couldn't find your way out? Okay, they build that environment purposely so that it's difficult to leave. They want you to stay in there longer. So there usually aren't any windows, or if There are windows, they're blackened out, there aren't any clocks, so you don't know if it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the morning. There's these kind of maze-like patterns that go through the casino, and plus they give you free drinks. So you don't know what time it is. You're in a rat maze, and you're drunk. So you're not going to find your way out. So they do that on purpose. Even if you go to grocery stores, just in terms of where they place the food. If you go to the cereal aisle and you have 352 choices of cereal, the most expensive cereals are, of course, at eye level. The cereals that are $3.99, $4.99, $5.99, right there at eye level. If you want the generic 99-cent in a bag, cereal, you pretty much have to go on your hands and knees on a treasure hunt to try to find it. And all the kids' toys in grocery stores are usually at kiddie level. The parents never see them, but the kids do. That's why you might see mothers, when a kid brings up a toy, she says, well, where did you find that? Where did you get that? Because she didn't see it, but the kid saw it. So they know about placement and how to arrange things. Again, this is geography because it's spatial arrangement of stuff. How classrooms are arranged will often affect learning. And as human beings, we have patterns of spatial arrangement. You go into a movie theater, a crowded movie theater, and you'll see this, where people will scan seats. So there's a good spatial arrangement where they have some empty seats around them. If there were only a few people in a movie theater and someone else came in and sat right next to you when there were 150 other empty seats, you'd probably find that odd. What's going on here? Doesn't that person understand the spatial arrangement? Students will usually sit in the same seats every day or close to it. And they get used to that pattern. And if they walk in a little bit late and someone's in their seat, kind of shakes it up a little bit. Like, wait a minute. What's going on here? Now I have to sit somewhere else. So now the whole class looks different because they're used to that interaction with the spatial arrangement that they've had the entire semester. So human environment interaction can be both a physical environment and the built environment. Movement, the fourth theme, can involve the movement of anything. Okay, the movement of anything. I know that's broad, but it is the movement of anything. Tangible or intangible. So it can be physical things, planes, trains, automobiles, or it can be the movement of ideas, the movement of disease, the movement of things that are more abstract. A lot of geographers study movement, and we can look at large-scale migration patterns. That's movement. Why do people move? Large-scale movements from one part of the world to the other part of the world. Why do people move from one part of the United States to the other part of the United States? Why do people move within a state? How do we decide which road we're going to take? How are we going to decide how we're going to design our roads to facilitate ease of movement? If you think about roads in Fresno, you can see how they are designed in such a way. If you're going from if you're going south to north, how you have roads corresponding with freeway exits, where you have a road that's fairly busy, then not so busy. So you have Shaw, busy, Barstow, not so busy, Bullard, busy, etc., going all the way up. This is to facilitate movement. Some of you may have tried to take a shortcut through a neighborhood and it didn't quite pan out. Okay, that's what's supposed to happen, because they don't want you to take a shortcut through a neighborhood. So they design it with a very different type of pattern, a road pattern, so that it's not going to lend itself to be an easy shortcut. So they want the only people to be in that neighborhood are the people that live in that neighborhood or that are visiting in that neighborhood. So we're always doing things to facilitate movement. Even your individual movement of, when you leave work or when you say you're on campus and you're going from one class to another. How do you decide which route you're going to take? Is it where the sidewalk is, or is it the closest way to get there, to get from point A to point B, no matter what you have to travel through? Usually it's the second option, which is why just about every campus, everywhere has a very nice network of sidewalks along with a very nice network of dirt paths. And there was actually a CSU campus that took this notion to the extreme. And when they built the campus, they just built the buildings without the sidewalks. And I don't know if it was a semester or maybe it was an entire academic year that they then built the sidewalks where all the dirt paths were that were made by the students. I thought this was genius. I thought this was geography in action, because now they were looking at spatial patterns. So if they wanted to grow grass, they actually could. If they wanted to plant some flowers that weren't going to be trampled, they actually could. So that was taking a geographic notion and applying it in a very real world way. So again, it can be the movement of animals, it can be the movement of people, it can be the movement of cars, of planes, or of ideas, of more abstract things. But geographers are always looking at how phenomena get from point A to point B. And the last theme is region. And a region, very simply, is an area that has similar characteristics. It's an area that has similar characteristics. And it is typically enclosed with a boundary of some sort. Now, again, this region can be real or imaginary. Okay? It can be concrete, it can be perceptual. So, for example, Fresno is a region. Fresno County is a region. The state of California is a region. The United States is a region. North America is a region. Okay, with political borders. If I gave you a map of the United States and asked you to draw lines designating the Northeast, the Southeast, the Southwest, the West, etc., Midwest, you would probably all have different maps. That would be more of a perceptual region. The line may not be as definitive, but a region nonetheless. We can look at language regions, areas where the same dialect is spoken or the same language is spoken. We can look at agricultural regions, the corn belt, the dairy belt, the wheat belt. Those are all regions. We can look at the Bible Belt is a region, so religious regions. Agricultural regions, we can look at, or I mentioned agricultural, I said it again. We can look at the Sun Belt or the Rust Belt. Okay, that has to do with industry or lack thereof. The Sun Belt having to do with weather. So there are all different sorts of things that we can look at that can define a region. It can be physical characteristics, it can be cultural characteristics, or again, it can be something that's real, or it can be something that's perceptual. But there is something within that region that binds it all together. So throughout this semester, you'll see different maps of different types of regions. When we get to language, I'll show you different maps of this is where this language is spoken, this is where this language is spoken. When we get to political geography, there'll be maps. When we get to urban geography, there'll be maps of cities, and these are the metro areas. So geography constantly uses this theme of region in order to designate areas and to structure the globe. So again, as I mentioned, for these 5 themes, I want you to know not only what they are, but I want you to be able to give me an example of them and put them in context. Because in some cases, exam questions might be simple term definition. In other cases, it might be one where you need to use critical thinking, and it will be an example of. So I might say, which of the following is an example of place? Or this particular scenario is an example of which of the 5 themes. So I just gave you a few examples, but those examples I think are good enough examples so that even if I gave you one that wasn't the exact same example that we talked about at this lecture, that you should be able to differentiate them from the others. So again, have a working definition and then an example for each one. So that concludes the 5 themes, and it also includes our introduction to human geography And next week we'll begin our first topic of culture.